In just a moment, I'm going to be introducing author Bruce Van Alstyne, and I really hope I'm saying his name right. But anyway, we're going to be talking about a book that he wrote for middle school kids, and it's called The Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist. In my mind, I kept thinking adventures, but it's The Sweet Adventures because everything in this book is sweet. And he is a disabled Navy vet, and I can't wait to talk to him. He's a chef, he's an actor, screenwriter, and, kind of does it all. So, everyone, here is Bruce. Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I am speaking with author Bruce Van Alstyne, and we are talking about his book, which is so good. It's called The Secret Adventures of Henry P. Twist, and it is for middle school, but you know what? As an adult, I saw lots of reviews, Bruce. Adults were loving reading it too. They were loving reading it to their children. So that must make you very, very happy. And
yes, it does. It does. Bless your heart for saying that. Yes. Well, when I wrote the book for the entire family, and that was my goal. And so I'm really happy about that.
Well, you are a man of many trades. Okay. I looked at your bio, actor, screenwriter, author. But what I love the most, because I am a military mom, is that you are a retired Navy vet. And are you disabled military vet?
I'm a disabled vet. I was in the Navy for years and got out on a medical discharge. But I would have been in still hadn't things went south for me.
Yeah. What years were you in?
I was in from 86. I went in 86 to about 88. I got out in November of 88.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was on the USS Nimitz, aircraft carrier.
Yes.
I was a cook on board. Went from cooking for 2,000 men to cooking for 14 in about 3 months. I went to cook for the Admiral.
That is
so
crazy.
Wonderful.
That is impressive. And I was married to a Marine Corps vet, and I lived on Andrews Air Force Base for a while. But he was on the USS Coral Sea.
Oh yeah, I remember that boat.
Yeah, he worked on F-18, so it was he was a Marine. It's close. Yeah. But I have a son that's a Marine, and he worked on F-18s. Never went on an aircraft carrier. And then another son who was over in war. He's in the Army, and he was in Iraq. And they're both out. They both are survived. They're both vets.
They're safe.
They're both safe, but
wonderful.
Years, if I die before 70, everybody will know why, because,
More gray hairs.
Yeah, but anyway, when I saw that, I was like, oh, it's a big part of my life. So, we have that in common. But okay, you wrote this book called The Singing Chef, and you incorporate into The Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist so much of your cooking experience and baking and all kinds of stuff. Like, is that your first love?
Well, yes and no. Cooking for me was always something that I always did. I always watched my mom and my grandmother, and even my dad is a pretty good cook himself. He would his thing was spaghetti. I always liked his spaghetti as well. He would make that for us, and so I was encouraged after I graduated since I was acting in Massachusetts. I grew up in Boston, and I was acting, doing a lot of commercials and things there. And I did a couple of episodes of Spencer for Hire and Against the Law when they ran. Oh, absolutely. And a lot of industrials there. But my mom kept saying, you're going to need to have something to fall back on because, the work was few and far between. And so I went to culinary school. And so cooking was always something that I did. The Singing Chef came about. I was living in L.A. and I had a friend come out that said, Bruce, you really need to be singing. Acting okay, but you really need to be singing. And my heroes have always been Johnny Mathis is my hero, Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra, all those guys, right?
Oh yeah.
And it just so happened I met Jack Siegel, who wrote When Sunny Gets Blue, Scarlet Ribbons, all those songs that Mathis sang When Sunny Gets Blue. And I also met an orchestrator by the name of Alan Ferguson, who did a lot of arrangements for John, and Dionne Warwick and a few other people. And I put together a demo, kind of a CD of some songs that I was doing, including one that I wrote. And I played it for Alan, and Alan says, nobody sings songs like this anymore. You need to have a gimmick. And we sat around and we thought about it for a while. I said, my aunt used to call me the singing chef. Why don't I put a book together of some recipes and put the CD with that? And that is how the Singing Chef was born from that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, especially because, I used to, back in the day, not so much anymore, but Food Network. I mean, they opened up the world for,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was looking at maybe one day doing a cooking show or something. It was going to be this grand, elaborate show with special guests, almost kind of like the Celebrity Chef series was back in the 70s or 80s. And but with a little bit more information about cookware and knives and things, and giving our viewers information about all of these wonderful products that were available to them as home cooks or whatever. And we'd have special guests on talking about their wares. So that's was my dream then, or to have a big restaurant out in the middle of nowhere, and cooking dishes from all over the world, because I love to eat. I really love to eat, and so, oh yes. But the Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist does tell a story about food, about my love of baking too. The character is a pastry chef, and I love pastries more than I love anything. I have a wicked sweet tooth.
Me too. And you know what? In this day and age, there aren't I look at my daughters and my daughter-in-laws, and it's so easy to just go to the grocery store and buy, pie crusts and buy, but I always made everything from scratch, and I enjoyed it. Like, it was the process. It wasn't like to be quick. It was like the process of baking. And I baked a lot when they were growing up, and, I don't see it carrying on too much, but they're busy. It's a different world, but I love to carry on. Like, I love to pass on. And that's when I saw that about you. Like, passing on, like, why is it fun? Why is baking fun? It isn't just about the eating. It's the process of making it.
Absolutely. And it's a lot of work. I remember in culinary school, I was trained classically as a chef, the old, Leroux's gastronomic encyclopedia was our Bible of food. And, we learned things. We cooked with butter, and, none of these shortcuts. I learned a lot of great things, like how to bring a sauce back if you break a sauce, like, say, a hollandaise sauce. Yeah. They don't teach that anymore. In culinary schools. That, from what I understand, they always tell you, well, you're going to have to start over. I can show you how to bring back a sauce if you've broken the sauce. And so that's something that they don't do anymore. When I started the Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist, it started as an impromptu story, bedtime story that I told my daughter, who at the time was right around 4 or 5 years old. And when she would visit me in California. And after a while of telling the story every night, and I would just give her a little bit, like a chapter or so, impromptu every night. And I said, hey, this is pretty good. I should write this down. But when I did write it down, finally, I wrote it as a screenplay. Being in LA, that's what you do. You write movies, right?
Right.
The first incarnation of this story appeared as a screenplay. And over time, as I was shopping it around, I had a lot of people in LA tell me, hey, man, you really need to sit down and write the book first for this. It would be great. That way, then you can, kind of develop the character a little bit and then take it forward. And so 20 years later, here we are, first book is out.
There we go. We get to see the cover. Yay.
Yeah. And so
I would love to see this now. Now I go with my grandchildren to the movies. And, sometimes, I'm really bored. Okay. You know, some of them are done really well. And then others, I'm like, but this, I think this could be really fun. Like, and especially with how they animate now and, the
Absolutely.
digital and,
And yeah, we're looking to do a feature film. I have a book trailer for this that I put together that is very theatrical. And after people see it, they're like, okay, so when's the movie coming out? When's the movie
right.
coming out? Because it was really well done. I had a wonderful team in Hollywood do it for me. Adam Cushman from Film 14, his crew, they're wonderful. They do book trailers. And he and his team did a wonderful job on my trailer.
Well, I really hope it happens for you because it was.
Thank
I think there needs to be more of them. I really do. First of all, not a lot come out. Like that's one thing is like for kids, but they've got Netflix and and that's another thing is like there's so many other avenues you could go to. It's like you can go to Amazon and Netflix and many other channels. So it's kind of exciting for screenwriters, I think, nowadays because if you can't go one route, you can kind of go different ways. But what I think you should do, just advice, is the Singing Chef on YouTube.
Oh yes, yeah, I was told that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of food shows on YouTube, but I mean, you would be so entertaining on that, and people would tune in. And like you said, things that they don't necessarily teach anymore, and I think that could be fun.
Well, funny enough, there is a guy already billing himself as the singing chef. He's an Italian fellow that I know. His name is Andy LaRusso. He's a really sweet guy, and he does shows. He appears live, and he travels as the singing chef. So I've kind of backed off from that. I just write about it now through my fairy tales. And that's what The Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist is. It's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, oh, it's a children's book, it's a fairy tale. Fairy tale, it kind of implies that it's for everybody.
Exactly.
It's for young and old.
Yes.
So,
yes,
yeah.
and I love fairy tale because who didn't love a fairy tale? I love
Right.
that and it is, and I I love the adventures of him. Like I don't know, like the different lands. Like I
Right.
picture that's the thing that I picture like on big screen are these different lands.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think that would be so pretty.
Absolutely. And that's, I really want children and adults to
Right.
use their imaginations again. I think we've gotten away from that with all of the electronics that we have, the iPads and Facebook, medias and all of that stuff. We've kind of gotten away from, exploring our own thoughts, our own dreams, and so forth, and building these lands, these distant lands, in our own minds. I love that. I love that about, fairy tales. I grew up listening to, my mom used to read to us all the time.
Yep.
She read Peter Pan. Peter Pan to this day is one of my favorite books, Sir James and Barry. We had all the Dr. Seuss books, so of course I had that influence. Brothers Grimm is another huge favorite of mine. All of the Brothers Grimm's fairy tales, Hans Christian Andersen, the Aesop's fables. We don't read these things anymore to our children, but I do. I read. Last night I read Rumpelstiltskin to my son for the first time to him, and but I grew up listening to that. When I was in fifth grade, this is when busing started in Boston. I had a wonderful fifth grade teacher by the name of Miss Kinsella, and an hour before school let out, she would read a book to us. And, so many chapters before the bell rang. The book she chose to read to us was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. That was my first...
Roald Dahl. Yeah.
Yes, my first exposure to the wonderful Roald Dahl. And after she finished reading that book, and it took, quite a number of weeks to get through it, she read the second one, Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. Yeah. After that, she read James and the Giant Peach, then The Witches, then Matilda. So I had a wonderful introduction to these stories. And I think a lot of the influence that we all have when we write about food is that Roald Dahl story, the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yes.
You know, and so I think I could honestly say that I was influenced by Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I was also influenced in writing the story um, just by what my great grandmother said. The whole state of elderly people in America. Uh, First, let me just say that The Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist is about an elderly pastry chef who rediscovers his youth in a land of fairies, myth, magic, and the most scrumptious sweets ever imagined. Saying that, I thought about what my great grandmother said to me one day. I was 18 years old, and my grandmother was taking care of her at the time. And she said, Brucey, I can't understand how one old lady can take care of a whole bunch of kids, but a whole bunch of kids can't take care of one little old lady. And that stuck with me. And I started really thinking about that and hearing all of these horror stories about the conditions of retirement facilities and how when an elderly person goes to one, they really don't come out. Right. You know, their life ends and they're so full of life, and age is nothing but a number.
Right.
And this is how I crafted the book, to kind of tell that story. And, you know, in a fairy tale setting, that age is nothing but a number. It means absolutely nothing. It's all relative.
Yes.
And but putting together, you know, elements that you're only as old as you think and feel. And I think that's the main theme of the book. You're only as old as you think and feel. And so Henry becomes young in this land, you know, and has to relearn how to be young again, because society tells you and dictates to you, at this age you have to do this, or this age you have to do this, and then you forget. It's almost like Peter Pan. When you grow up, you forget what being a child is like, and so you forget about Neverland, you know. And I kind of want to bring that back.
Yeah,
you know?
and I only have one more question for you. Are you writing another one?
Well, book 2 is out now. The Sweet Adventures of Henry P. Twist, The Island of Milk and Honey. You can find both books up on my website, www.hptwist.com. Both books are now out and available. I will be starting book 3, kind of maybe at the end of the end of the year, or at the beginning of the year. I'll start writing that. But books 1 and 2 are out, and if you liked book 1, you'll definitely like book 2. It's the continuing adventures of Henry and his mates there in the Sweet Lands.
Well, that is just awesome. And everybody, I'm going to have all his links. I will have the trailer. Everywhere you can find Bruce will be down below here. Plus the Amazon link, which I love about Amazon. You're going to be able to push that button, and then you can push a button, and you will have it. Can you show us those covers again? Because you did it so quick, and I'd love everybody to see the covers.
Okay, here's book 1.
Uh-huh. Awesome.
This is book 2, The Island of Milk and Honey.
Love
There's
it.
a picture of a cow on the front. That's Queen Moo.
Yes.
She's a talking cow, talking bovine. And so that's always fun. I think the kids will get a big kick out of that as well.
Well, thank you so much, Bruce. It was really fun to meet you. I'm really happy that we connected. And, you know, everybody, I'm telling you, you can read it to your kids, your grandkids, but you're going to love it as much as they do. So. And
recipes in the back of the book.
I wanted to tell everybody there are recipes on the back, and I love the recipes.
So on page, page 127, there's a gingerbread house recipe. So if you want to make a gingerbread house or Lebkuchenhaus with your grandkids or children, you can do so. I've also added in this new edition of book 1 my sugar plum recipe. So if you've heard of sugar plums before, I guess the night before Christmas would be one of those times. There is a sugar plum recipe in the back. In book 2, however, there are 2 cake recipes. Without leavening agents.
And I love that. I love that. I wanted to tell you that. I'm like, I want to try that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I want to try.
What did we do before baking powder and baking soda? How did we make cakes before then? Well, I go into that because our hero has to make a cake for some trolls that doesn't have access to any leavening agents. So how does he do it? You have to
Oh,
find out.
I'm really happy that you put those recipes because I'm going to
Oh,
try them. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
thank you so much, Bruce. You have an amazing day, and it was
Thank
so
you for
much
having
fun
me.
to meet you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, bye bye.
Bye now.
For watching, everyone. I don't interview a lot of like children's books or middle school books, but when I saw these books, I was like, I have to. There we go. I have to do it. I mean, it was so good. And like I said, there are recipes in the back, and I knew he was going to be fun. I saw him on YouTube, and I was like, I have to meet him. So, anyway, I am so happy I met Bruce. All the links are listed below, and thank you for watching.